Seth Connor stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office, surveying the Boston skyline. At 52, his salt-and-pepper hair and athletic build lent him the appearance of a man who commanded respect rather than asked for it. The golden rays of sunset glinted off the plaque on his desk. Connor Insurance Group, founder and CEO. 20 years of calculated risks and strategic decisions had transformed his one-man operation into a powerhouse that now employed over 300 people. Seth's fingers traced the edge of his mahogany desk, custom-made from the very tree he had cut down to build his first office. "Mr. Connor," came the efficient voice of Trudy Green through the intercom. "Your 4 o'clock appointment is here." "Send them in, Trudy." The door opened to reveal a young couple, their faces bearing the shell-shocked expression Seth had seen countless times before. People whose lives had been upended by disaster, seeking help from their insurance company. "Please, sit down." Seth gestured toward the leather chairs across from his desk. "Tell me what brought you here today." As they recounted their story, a house fire, an initial claim denial, bureaucratic nightmares, Seth listened intently, occasionally making notes in his leather-bound notebook. This was precisely why he had built this company, to mend what was broken in the insurance industry. "Let me be clear," Seth's voice carried the weight of authority. "Connor Insurance Group will make this right. My assistant will personally oversee your case." The relief that washed over their faces reminded him of why he had chosen this path in the first place. After they departed, Trudy entered with a stack of documents requiring his signature. "You still handle these cases personally," she observed, organizing the papers with practiced efficiency. "Most CEOs would delegate." He signed the final document with his Montblanc pen, a gift from his twins on his 50th birthday. "That's why we're not like most insurance companies, Trudy," he remarked. Speaking of personal touches, Trudy retrieved her tablet. Was sent over the final numbers for last quarter. The expansion into commercial real estate insurance exceeded projections by 30%. Seth nodded, acknowledging his business partner's contribution. M.O. Brock had joined the firm 15 years earlier, bringing with him a Rolodex of connections that had proved invaluable. The man possessed a gift for opening doors that seemed permanently closed to others. "And Patty wants to know if you'll be home for dinner," Trudy added, referring to Seth's wife of 25 years. "She's meeting with the party planners for the twins' graduation celebration. Tell her I'll be there by 7, Seth replied, turning back toward the window. His reflection revealed a slight smile as he thought of his children. James and Sarah were graduating from Harvard Business School the following month, both with honors, both eager to join the family business. As the sun set over Boston Harbor, Seth reflected on his empire. Connor Insurance Group had become more than just a successful business. It was a legacy his children would inherit. Not merely a company, but a reputation for integrity in an industry often lacking it. "Oh, and Seth," Trudy paused at the door, her tone softening with the familiarity of someone who had worked alongside him for 2 decades. The twins called. They want to discuss some new ideas for the company's digital transformation. "They haven't even graduated yet," Seth chuckled, but pride colored his voice. "Always eager, just like their old man." "You've given them everything," Trudy remarked, her expression thoughtful. "A future, a purpose, a path forward." Seth's phone buzzed, a text from Patty about the catering options for the graduation party. He typed a quick response, trusting her judgment as he had with all their social events. She had been handling the company's affairs with grace and precision for years. Long before their marriage, they had understood the importance of perception in the marketing world. As he gathered his belongings to head home, Seth paused to straighten a photograph on his wall, a portrait of the entire family taken at the company's 20th anniversary gala the previous year. Patty stood elegant as ever, positioned between their twins, while Gwa lingered slightly off to the side, raising a glass in celebration. The security guard nodded respectfully as Seth exited the building. "Good evening, Mr. Connor." "Good evening, Marcus. How is your daughter's college fund coming along?" "Growing steadily, sir, thanks to the financial advisor you recommended." Seth patted him on the shoulder as he passed. "Keep at it. Education is the best investment you can make." Driving home in his Mercedes, Seth mentally reviewed his upcoming week. His calendar brimmed with board meetings, client presentations, and preparations for the twins' graduation party. He had built something substantial, something meaningful, and soon, It would be time to begin passing the torch to the next generation. Little did he know, the empire he had so carefully constructed was already being undermined from within. The following week began with an unexpected meeting. Vince Snell, head of security for Connor Insurance Group, requested an urgent appointment first thing Monday morning. Seth had hired Vince 5 years earlier, having recruited him from a major technology firm, and the man had never once raised a false alarm. "You're here early, Vince," Seth noted, gesturing for him to sit. The usually composed security chief's face showed clear signs of concern. "Mr. Connor, something is not right with our systems," Vince began, pulling out his tablet. "I've been monitoring unusual patterns in our digital access logs." Seth leaned forward, his expression sharpening. "Define unusual." "Someone has been copying files after hours," Vince reported, pulling up detailed logs on the screen. High-level documents, shareholder agreements, client lists, actuarial data. The access points are internal, using authorized credentials. But the timing does not align, Seth. He studied the logs, his jaw tightening. "Show me whose credentials were used." "That is the concerning part, sir," Vince replied, swiping to another screen. "Most of the access originates from Mr. Brock's login information. But observe the timestamps. Many of these downloads occurred during charity events or board dinners where I personally witnessed him in attendance. Could his credentials have been compromised?" Seth kept his voice neutral. Years of business negotiations helped him mask his growing unease. "Possible, but unlikely, given our security protocols," Vince said, shaking his head. "Someone with physical access to his office would have an easier time. The pattern suggests inside knowledge of our systems." Seth stood and walked to his window. The morning sun cast long shadows across the city, not unlike the shadows now falling across his trust in his inner circle. "Increase monitoring quietly. I want to know every file accessed, every change made, no matter how small. But keep this between us for now." "There is more," Vince hesitated. Mrs. Connor's marketing database access shows similar patterns, large data downloads during times when she has been representing the company at events alongside Mr. Brock. Seth turned, his expression hardening. "Document everything, Vince, and set up a secure communication channel between us, something off the company's servers." "Already done, sir," Vince said, pulling out a burner phone. "Untraceable, encrypted. I will send updates daily." After Vince left, Seth sat at his desk, studying the family photo that suddenly seemed to mock him. He pressed the intercom. "Trudy, get me Daniel from IT. Tell him it is urgent, but it must be discreet." Within minutes, Daniel arrived, looking nervous. "You wanted to see me, Mr. Connor?" "Sit down, Daniel. What I am about to ask you requires absolute confidentiality." Seth's tone left no room for discussion. "I need a complete backup of all company data stored off-site. Make it appear as routine system maintenance." "Sir, that is a massive undertaking." Daniel adjusted his glasses. "It would take weeks to do it without raising any flags." "You have 3 days." Seth's voice carried the same authority that had built his empire. "Whatever resources you need are yours, but this stays between us." After Daniel left, Seth reviewed his calendar. Gwa had scheduled several client meetings for the afternoon, meetings that surprisingly weren't in Trudy's original schedule. "Trudy," he called through the intercom, "give me everything you can on Guadalupe Simmons Catering, and find out who's handling their insurance." Gwa's sister-in-law's company. Trudy sounded surprised. "They're handling the graduation party, aren't they?" "Just get me the information." Seth kept his voice casual. "And Trudy, no need to mention this to anyone else." Throughout the day, Seth maintained his normal routine, but his mind worked overtime processing the implications. During a budget meeting, he noticed how Gwa dominated the discussion about international expansion, something they'd never seriously considered before. "The Asian market is ripe for our services," Gwa argued smoothly, his designer suit and perfectly coiffed hair projecting success. "We're talking potential returns of 40% in the first year alone." "That's quite optimistic," Seth countered, watching his partner carefully. "What about regulatory compliance?" "Already researched," Patty chimed in, sharing a quick glance with Gwa that might have seemed innocent last week. "Our marketing team has connections with several firms in Singapore." Seth noted how they prepared their arguments in advance, how they subtly supported each other's points. Had he been blind to this dynamic, or was he now seeing conspiracy where none existed? After the meeting, He received a text from Vince. More files copied last night. Claims processing databases. Need to talk. Seth deleted the message, then called his old friend from law school. Clifford? It's Seth Connor. Can we meet somewhere private? The following day arrived quickly, with a duck boat tour scheduled for noon. It felt like old times that evening as Seth was driving home. He took a detour past Guadalupe Simmons Catering. Through the windows, he saw Patty engaged in an animated discussion with Gwy's sister-in-law. Both were laughing over what appeared to be party plans. His phone buzzed with a text from James's dad. Sarah and I have some exciting ideas for modernizing the company structure. Can we meet tomorrow? Seth typed back an affirmative response, his mind already plotting his next moves. He had built this company on calculated risks and careful planning. If someone was trying to undermine that, they would learn why Seth Connor had succeeded where others had failed. He wasn't just a successful businessman. He was a strategist who had anticipated and overcome countless challenges. This would be no different. The next day, Seth met Clifford Bird on one of Boston's famous duck boats. The amphibious vehicles provided both tourism and, in this case, privacy for their discussion. Clifford, now a senior FBI agent specializing in white-collar crime, had aged well since their law school days. His sharp eyes hadn't lost their analytical edge. You're not going to like what I found. Clifford began once they were on the water, away from prying ears. He opened a secure laptop, showing Seth a complex web of financial transactions. It's worse than unauthorized access. They've created an elaborate fraud scheme. Seth studied the screen, his expression darkening. Walk me through it. They've been manipulating claim data, creating ghost policies, and siphoning premiums into offshore accounts, Clifford explained, pointing to various transactions. The scheme is elegant, I'll give them that. Fake policies written to shell companies, premiums collected and diverted, then massive claims filed and paid out to more shell companies. We're talking millions over several years. How did they hide this from our auditors? Seth's voice remained steady, but his knuckles whitened as he gripped the boat's railing. At this point, the situation took a compelling turn. Clifford pulled up another screen. The auditing firm had been changed 3 years ago. The new firm was owned by a holding company that traced back to a familiar name, Guadalupe Simmons. Seth's jaw clenched. Gumo's sister-in-law, he said. The same woman catering your twins' graduation party. Clifford nodded. The real question is, who else is involved? Show me everything, Seth demanded. For the next hour, Clifford laid out the evidence. Shell companies in the Cayman Islands, fabricated insurance claims, manipulated actuarial data, all pointing to a sophisticated operation requiring intimate knowledge of Connor Insurance Group's internal systems. Your head of security was right to be concerned, Clifford noted, but he only saw the tip of the iceberg. This level of fraud required multiple people working in concert. What about my children? Seth asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Clifford hesitated. There are some unusual transactions from accounts set up in their names. But given their age and position, they might be unwitting participants, or they might not be. Seth's tone hardened. What's our next move? Legally, we have enough for arrests, Clifford replied. But if you want to understand the full scope, we need to let them play out their hand. The graduation party, when is it? Next Saturday. Perfect timing. Clifford pulled out his phone, showing Seth a document. We've been building a case against your main competitor for similar fraud schemes. But looking at these patterns, I'm starting to think we were led in that direction deliberately. Seth's eyes narrowed. A frame job. Seems likely. Your competitor's CEO reached out to us last month, claiming someone was trying to hack their systems. The IP address is traced back to servers registered to shell companies we now know are connected to this case. As they returned to shore, Seth and Clifford finalized their plan. The FBI would continue their official investigation into the competitor. Maintaining the illusion that the true perpetrators remained secure, Clifford added one more thing as they prepared to part ways. I'm assigning Agent Allison Ritter to collaborate with your corporate counsel. She specializes in asset recovery. Whatever they've stolen, she will find it. Back at his office, Seth adhered to his customary routine while discreetly setting his plans in motion. He contacted his lawyer to update his will and the conditions of the twins' trust fund. He authorized Vince to implement enhanced security measures throughout the building. And he observed how Patty lingered in Gwy's office, how his children exchanged knowing glances during meetings, how his empire appeared to be fracturing at the seams. "Trudy," he called to his assistant late that afternoon, "I need you to clear my schedule for tomorrow morning and gather all the information we have on our offshore operations." "Of course," she replied, pausing at the door. "Seth, whatever is happening, I hope you realize you can trust me." He looked up at the woman who had stood by him for 20 years, who had never asked for more than she earned, and had helped build the company through unwavering loyalty and dedication. "I know, Trudy," he said, offering a genuine smile. "That is precisely why, after next week, we are going to have a lengthy discussion about your future with the company." As darkness descended over Boston, Seth remained in his office, reviewing years of records with newfound clarity. The betrayal cut deeply, but he had learned long ago that success demanded more than mere business acumen. It required the fortitude to make difficult decisions. The graduation party would signify more than his children's academic achievements. It would mark the conclusion of one chapter and the dawn of another. And Seth Connor intended to write this ending his way. On the morning of the graduation celebration, dawn broke bright and clear over the Connor family estate. Seth stood in his study, observing the army of workers transforming his sprawling backyard into a venue worthy of a Society magazine spread. The cost would exceed 6 figures, a fact that now carried bitter irony. The tent construction was running ahead of schedule. Patty announced this as she entered the study without knocking, her designer dress and perfectly coiffed hair speaking of hours of meticulous preparation. "Guadalupe's team will begin setting up the catering stations by noon," she added. Seth turned, studying his wife's face with new eyes. 25 years of marriage, and he had never noticed how practiced her smile had become. "You seem to have everything under control," he remarked. "Of course I do," Patty replied, her tone carrying a hint of condescension. "I've been managing events like this since before we could afford them." Speaking of which, was suggested we invite the Hendersons. Their investment firm could be useful for our expansion plans. Did he now? Seth kept his voice neutral. "Interesting timing." "Everything's about timing, darling," Patty said, moving to adjust his tie, a gesture that once felt intimate but now seemed presumptuous. "The children's graduation, our company's growth. Everything must be perfect." The emphasis she placed on that last word made Seth's jaw tighten imperceptibly. Through the window, he watched Guadalupe Simmons directing her staff with sharp, efficient gestures. The catering company's vans bore a logo that matched one of the shell companies Clifford had identified. "Have you seen the guest list?" Patty was saying, scrolling through her tablet. "Over 200 confirmed attendees. The governor sent his regrets, but his chief of staff will attend. Gua's connections really are invaluable." "They certainly are," Seth agreed, thinking of the offshore accounts bearing similar names to Gua's various charitable foundations. The doorbell rang, and moments later, Sarah bounded into the study. "Mom, the florist needs your approval on the centerpieces, and Uncle Yo's here early. He wants to review some documents with you before the party." Seth noticed how his daughter's eyes darted between them, a calculation in her expression that seemed foreign on her young face. When had his little girl learned to observe with such guarded awareness? On a Saturday, Seth raised a skeptical eyebrow. "The party is in a few hours." "Oh, Daddy," Sarah laughed, her tone artificially light. "You're the one who taught us the company never sleeps. Besides, Mom and Uncle Gua have been handling all the new Asian expansion paperwork. Wouldn't want anything to delay that, right?" Patty shot their daughter a sharp look, which Seth pretended not to notice. "I'll handle the florist first. Tell Gua I'll meet him in the pool house in 15 minutes. Seth, darling, don't forget the photographer arrives at 4. After they left, Seth made a call. "Vince, is everything in place?" "Yes, sir. Every room in the house is covered, including the pool house. Agent Bird's team has the perimeter secured." "Good. And the other matter?" "The backup server is operational. If they try to access any files during the party, we'll know." Seth ended the call as James entered, looking every bit the young executive in his tailored suit. "Dad, the caterers need the wine cellar key." "I'll handle it personally," Seth replied, watching his son's face carefully. "Quite a turnout expected today. You and Sarah must be excited." "It's a big day for all of us," James smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Mom says this party will mark the beginning of a new era for Connor Insurance." "Did she now?" Seth moved to his safe, deliberately shielding the combination as he opened it. And what era would that be? James shrugged, trying too hard to appear casual. You know, Mom, always thinking about marketing angles. Hey, is that the new partnership agreement with the Singapore firm? Seth closed the safe, pocketing the wine cellar key. Let's focus on the party for now. We can discuss business on Monday. Throughout the afternoon, Seth watched the elaborate dance unfold. Patty fluttered between guests and vendors, every movement choreographed for maximum effect. Guo worked the arriving guests like a politician, his charm masking the predator beneath. And his children, his own flesh and blood, moved through the gathering with practiced smiles, their intentions as layered as the event itself. The twins moved through it all with practiced ease, playing their roles to perfection. Everything looks wonderful, Trudy commented, appearing at his side. She had arrived early, ostensibly to help coordinate, but really to serve as another set of eyes. Though I noticed Mrs. Connor spent quite a while in the pool house earlier with Mr. Brock. Did you now? Seth sipped his whiskey. And how long was quite a while? 43 minutes. Trudy's efficiency extended to everything she did. They seemed intense when they emerged. Your wife was straightening her dress. Seth's knuckles whitened around his glass, but his voice remained steady. Interesting. And where were James and Sarah during this time? In the wine cellar, supposedly helping the caterers. But the security feed shows them accessing your home office computer. Keep watching, Seth instructed. The part's just getting started. As afternoon faded into evening, the estate came alive with lights and music. Guests arrived in waves, business associates, society figures, political connections. Seth played the gracious host while noting every whispered conversation, every significant glance. Guadalupe Simmons cornered him by the bar, her smile as artificial as the pearls at her throat. Seth, the party is magnificent. My brother-in-law was right. No one does things quite like the Connors. Your catering team has outdone themselves. Seth replied smoothly. Tell me, how's business? I heard you recently expanded operations. Oh yes, we're growing rapidly, she preened. Gua's advice has been invaluable, such an understanding of international markets. I'm sure he understands many things. Seth's smile didn't waver. Excuse me, I see the governor's chief of staff has arrived. As he moved through the crowd, Seth caught fragments of conversations that meant more than the speakers knew. His children worked the room, dropping hints about upcoming changes in company leadership. Patty and Gua, separately but simultaneously, laid groundwork with key allies, each unaware of the other's parallel maneuvers. The key investors, the pieces were all falling into place. Everything must be perfect, he heard Patty say yet again, this time to the photographer. The emphasis she placed on the word now felt like a countdown. Seth checked his phone, a message from Clifford. Teams in position, waiting for your signal. The trap was set. Now all he had to do was wait for his family to spring it. As evening settled over the estate, Seth noticed the subtle shift in dynamics. Patty and Gua had grown bolder with each glass of champagne, their careful choreography beginning to slip. He watched them exchange glances across the crowded terrace, saw the almost imperceptible nod Patty gave before excusing herself from a conversation with a judge. Gua waited 3 minutes before following, his path to the house seemingly random but unmistakably purposeful. Seth counted to 60 before moving to follow, gesturing slightly to Vince, who immediately activated the house's internal surveillance system. The party's noise faded as Seth entered the house, replaced by the soft sound of footsteps and hushed voices moving toward his home office. He followed silently, years of suspicion crystallizing into cold certainty with each step. Through the partially open door, he could see them. Patty pressed against his desk, with hands possessively on her waist. Their passionate embrace would have been shocking enough, but it was their conversation that revealed the true depth of their betrayal. Everything's in place, Gua murmured, his accent thicker than usual. The last transfers went through yesterday. All the accounts are ready. Patty's laugh, a sound Seth once loved, now dripped with malice. And the FBI investigation is proceeding exactly as planned. Once they finish investigating our competitor, we'll have total control. The evidence we planted is irrefutable. And Seth, Patty's voice carried a mixture of contempt and amusement. He's been so busy trying to mentor the kids, he hasn't even noticed. I noticed they are already on our side, Gua. He chuckled, the sound oily and self-satisfied. The great Seth Connor, so focused on building his legacy that he never saw us dismantling it piece by piece. The twins were surprisingly easy to convince. They are young and ambitious. Patty straightened her dress with practiced ease. All it took was showing them how their father's outdated ethics were holding them back. James especially. He has been dying to prove he is more than just daddy's heir. The Singapore expansion was brilliant, Gua praised his hand, still possessive on her waist, using it to mask the transfer of assets. Seth actually congratulated me on securing those connections. He always did underestimate me. Patty's tone hardened. 25 years of playing the supportive wife, handling the little marketing decisions while he built his precious empire, as if I could not see bigger opportunities. And now it is all falling into place. Gua's smile was predatory. The offshore accounts are set up, the evidence against our competitor is in place, and Seth's own children will support our takeover when the time comes. Seth felt no pain as he listened, only a cold, calculating anger that sharpened his focus. Every word they spoke was being recorded, every admission building the case that would destroy them. When do we move? Patty asked, her fingers tracing patterns on Gua's chest. Soon. The FBI investigation into our competitor should conclude within weeks. Once they are implicated, we reveal the evidence of Seth's involvement. The board will have no choice but to act. And the children are already prepared to testify about their father's unethical practices if needed. Sarah is quite convincing when she talks about overhearing suspicious phone calls. Patty's laugh turned cruel. Poor Seth, so proud of his integrity. He never understood that real power comes from knowing when to break the rules. Speaking of rules, Gua pulled her closer. We should get back to the party before we are missed. Though I must admit, celebrating our victory in his own office holds a certain appeal, she remarked, a sly smile playing upon her lips. Patience, Patty, he murmured, but she pushed him back playfully, her eyes alight with ambition. Soon, all of this will be ours. No more pretending, no more playing the happy family. Just us, running things our way. Silently, Seth withdrew, his mind meticulously cataloging every word, every damning admission. He had known of the affair. The surveillance had confirmed that weeks prior. But this level of calculated betrayal involving his own children, demanded a response they would never anticipate. He sent a swift text to Vince, save everything. Send copies to Clifford. Then, he returned to the party, his expression a mask of calm composure, betraying nothing of the devastation he had just witnessed. He held one advantage now. They did not know that he knew, and he intended to wield that advantage to its fullest effect. Seth had scarcely processed the first wave of betrayal when he noticed movement in the hallway. James and Sarah were approaching the office, champagne glasses in hand. He slipped into an alcove, their voices carrying clearly through the quiet house. Is everything set? Sarah's excited whisper reached him. Mom texted that the transfers are complete. Uncle Gua confirmed it. James replied, his voice bearing the same ambitious edge that Seth had once noted with pride during board meetings. Dad doesn't suspect a thing. They entered the office, where Patty and Gua were still arranging themselves to appear presentable. Seth edged closer to the door, each word of his children's betrayal cutting deeper than the last. Mom's new boyfriend is so smart, Sarah exclaimed, giggling as she perched on Seth's desk, his desk, where he had taught her to read financial statements when she was just 12. The way you've been transferring those shares right under Dad's nose. It's brilliant. James high-fived Gua, a gesture that seemed casual yet was laden with meaning. Can't wait to help run the company the right way. Dad's too conservative, too ethical. There's so much more money to be made. Your father never understood the real potential of this business, Gua added, his tone dismissive. With a voice laced with false mentorship, he recounted all those opportunities he had passed up because of his principles, like the Medicare fraud scheme. Sarah took another sip of champagne. When you showed us those profit projections, God, Dad would have a heart attack. That's just the beginning. Patty smiled proudly at her children. Wait until you see what we have planned for the Asian expansion. The regulatory oversight there is flexible. James leaned against the window, the same window where he had stood as a child, promising to make his father proud. The board meeting next month will be interesting, especially when the FBI findings about our competitor come out and the evidence linking Dad to their scheme. Sarah added, her voice carrying an excitement that turned Seth's stomach. I still can't believe how easy it was to plant those emails using his login. You've both done wonderfully, Guo praised. Your father taught you well. Perhaps too well. You understood exactly which systems to access, which records to alter. Speaking of records, James straightened suddenly. We should get back to the party. People will notice if we're all missing at once, especially Dad. Sarah rolled her eyes. He's been weirdly attentive lately, almost like he suspects something. Patty waved away her daughter's concern. Your father sees what he wants to see. He's still convinced you both worship him and his precious ethical standards. Poor Daddy, Sarah's voice dripped with mock sympathy. So busy building his legacy, he never noticed us outgrowing it. To the new Connor Insurance Group, James raised his glass, where profit matters more than principles. They clinked glasses, the sound echoing in Seth's ears like funeral bells. He watched his children, his twins, his legacy, celebrating not just their graduation, but their planned destruction of everything he had built, everything he had taught them to value. Seth's hand tightened around his phone, his thumb hovering over Clifford's number. But no, timing was everything. Let them have this moment, this hollow victory. Let them believe their betrayal was complete. He moved silently away from the office, his mind already shifting from shock to cold, deliberate strategy. They thought they knew him, the predictable, principled father whose ethics they could so easily weaponize against him. They were about to learn how profoundly wrong they were. Back at the party, Seth accepted the congratulations and played the part of the proud father with practiced ease. Yet now, every smile, every handshake, every proud pronouncement about his children's future roles in the company carried a hidden, potent weight. Your twins are remarkable, a board member commented. They have such a grasp of modern business practices. They'll do great things with the company. Oh, I'm counting on it, Seth replied, his gaze coolly tracking his family as they worked the crowd. They're about to learn some very important lessons about business and about family. The party continued into the night, a glittering celebration of achievement and ambition. But beneath the polished surface, the real drama was just beginning. Seth had built his empire on meticulous planning and strategic foresight. Now, he would show them exactly what those skills could accomplish when turned toward revenge. Let them think they had won. Let them celebrate their clever scheme, their perfect betrayal. Soon enough, they would learn that Seth Connor had not succeeded in business by being naive. He had succeeded by being several steps ahead of everyone else. This graduation party marked more than just an academic achievement. It marked the moment when masks began to fall and carefully constructed lies began to unravel. And Seth intended to control every single moment of that unraveling. His expression remained perfectly neutral as he watched his family's betrayal unfold before him. The evidence of their duplicity was now complete, meticulously recorded and documented by the surveillance system Vince had installed years ago. A lifetime of business negotiations had taught him the supreme value of timing. And now, that time had finally come. He slipped away from the main celebration, moving to a quiet corner of the estate's garden, where he could make his calls without being observed. He first texted Clifford. Execute Plan A. Teams in position. The response came immediately. FBI units standing by. Local police coordinated. All exits covered. His next call was to Allison Ritter, his corporate counsel. She had been working behind the scenes for weeks, preparing for this moment. Everything's ready. Allison's crisp voice carried the satisfaction of a well-laid trap. I've got the injunctions prepared. The moment you give the word, we freeze every account connected to Guo's network. And the trust fund amendments filed and recorded last month. Your children's access to company shares and trust funds is now contingent on clean criminal records and 5 years of legitimate work in the company. The ethics clause is ironclad. Seth allowed himself a small smile. What about Patty's claims to company ownership? The prenuptial agreement infidelity clause has been activated. Combined with the fraud evidence, she'll lose all claims to company shares. The offshore accounts we trace to her name will be seized. And our competitor, we've already contacted their legal team. They're prepared to file countersuits once we reveal who really attempted to frame them. Their cooperation strengthens our case significantly. Seth checked his watch. Soon, Guo would begin his traditional role as party toastmaster, a position his ego wouldn't let him delegate. The cameras are in place, Seth confirmed. Everything will be recorded from multiple angles, Allison assured him. The evidence will be undeniable. And, Seth, the trust fund provisions you added last month? Brilliant. It gives the twins a path to redemption while ensuring they can't profit from their betrayal. Have the entry-level contracts ready, Seth instructed. If they want to earn back their place, they'll start from the bottom. Already prepared, along with the press releases explaining the company's position. Commitment to ethical business practices ensures that the market will respond positively to your handling of internal corruption. Seth concluded the call as he observed Trudy approaching. His longtime assistant's expression conveyed an ideal blend of concern and resolve. Everything is prepared, she informed him. Security teams are stationed in position, disguised as catering staff. Vince has all exits under surveillance. Good. You understand what happens next. Trudy nodded, her unwavering loyalty evident in every word. The company will require steady leadership throughout the transition. I have already drafted contingency plans for client retention and employee communications. That is precisely why you are being promoted to co-CEO, Seth affirmed. You have earned this through loyalty and competence, two qualities I have come to value even more profoundly of late. In the distance, Seth observed Gua assembling guests for the toast. The man's custom-tailored suit and practiced charm could no longer conceal his predatory nature. Not anymore, sir. Vince's voice transmitted through Seth's earpiece. Mrs. Connor just placed a call to an offshore number. Should we intervene? Allow her to play her hand, Seth responded. Every action she takes now merely contributes to the evidence. He watched as his wife navigated through the crowd, her designer gown and flawless smile serving as a mask for her true character. She had performed the part of the devoted spouse for 25 years, but today would mark her final performance. The twins were holding court near the champagne fountain, their youthful faces flushed with both alcohol and anticipated triumph. They remained unaware that their father had systematically dismantled their schemes, piece by piece. It is time, Seth murmured, more to himself than to Trudy. Let us demonstrate what occurs when ethical conduct is mistaken for weakness. The celebration had reached its zenith, the garden alive with laughter and music. Gua ascended the temporary stage, delicately tapping his crystal champagne flute to capture the audience's attention. The cameras Seth had discreetly arranged were recording, capturing every moment. Ladies and gentlemen, Gua's voice projected with polished smoothness. With the confidence of a man who believed he had already won, Seth invited everyone to join him in a toast to their graduates. The crowd, a mix of his invited employees, society figures, and business associates, gathered attentively. Patty stood near the front, her practiced smile unwavering. The twins positioned themselves strategically, just as Seth had taught them, though not for the purpose they now faced. To new beginnings, Gua declared, raising his glass and casting a knowing look toward Patty, and to the future of the Connor Insurance Group. Seth stepped forward, his movements deliberate and controlled. Speaking of insurance, his voice cut through the celebratory atmosphere. Let's discuss fraud. FBI agents entered silently from multiple directions, their movements coordinated and precise. Clifford led them, his badge gleaming in the evening light. Patty's champagne glass shattered on the marble patio, the sound as sharp as a gunshot. Her perfect composure cracked, revealing the fear beneath. Mom, Sarah's voice trembled, her earlier arrogance replaced by uncertainty. What's happening? What's happening is justice. Seth's voice carried authority and cold anger. Insurance fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. Shall I continue? Gua's charm vanished, replaced by calculation. Seth, my friend, surely we can discuss this privately, like you discussed framing our competitor. Seth cut him off. Or how about we discuss the offshore accounts, the ghost policies, the manipulated claims data? You don't understand. Patty stepped forward, her voice adopting the soothing tone she had used for years. Everything we did was for the company's growth. Save it for your lawyer. Seth's tone could have frozen fire. Though I doubt they'll be interested in how you and your lover plan to destroy everything I built. The twins tried to move toward the house, but found their path blocked by FBI agents. Dad, James attempted his boardroom voice, though it shook slightly. This is just a misunderstanding. Is it? Seth nodded to Vince, who activated the estate sound system. Suddenly, the twins' own voices filled the air, discussing their role in accessing systems, planting false evidence, and betraying their father's trust. Sarah's face went white. You were recording us? I was protecting my company, Seth corrected, from all threats, including my own blood. Clifford stepped forward, his badge raised. Gwa Brock, Patricia Donovan, Connor James, and Sarah Connor, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement, and corporate espionage. You can't do this. Gwa's accent thickened with anger. I made this company what it is. You made yourself a thief, Seth's voice cut like a blade. And now you'll face the consequences. As the FBI agents moved in with handcuffs, the party guests stood frozen, watching the scene unfold. Seth's employees, however, moved with purpose. Security teams emerged from their disguises. Corporate counsel appeared with documents, and Trudy began quietly directing the controlled chaos. Mom, Sarah tried again, tears now streaming down her face. Tell them this isn't true. But Patty was already being read her rights, her designer dress clashing with the steel handcuffs. Her mask had finally cracked completely, showing the bitter anger beneath. You self-righteous bastard, she spat at Seth. You think your precious ethics build empires? We could have had everything. I already had everything, Seth replied coldly, until greed poisoned it. The cameras continued rolling as the arrests proceeded. Seth had arranged this public takedown deliberately. The company's commitment to ethical behavior would be demonstrated in the most dramatic way possible. Sir, Trudy appeared at his side with a stack of documents. The press release is ready, and Allison has the injunctions prepared. Seth nodded, watching as his family was led away. He felt no sadness, no regret, only the cold satisfaction of justice served. The party guests began to leave, shepherded out by security, while FBI agents secured evidence. Seth's empire would survive. He had made certain of it. But first, the cancer had to be excised, completely and publicly. 1 year later, Seth sat in his newly redesigned office, reviewing the quarterly reports. The company had not merely survived the scandal. It had emerged stronger, its renewed commitment to ethical business practices earning the trust of new clients and investors alike. Trudy entered, now carrying herself with the confidence befitting a chief operating officer. The board meeting is ready to begin. The new compliance measures are already showing excellent results. In our security division, Vince has transformed it entirely. His team now identifies potential fraud before it can take root. The industry is beginning to adopt our protocols. Seth nodded, pleased but not surprised. He had chosen his loyal employees well, and their promotions had been earned through both competence and character. A knock at the door revealed James and Sarah, dressed in business casual attire rather than the designer suits they once favored. Their entry-level positions in separate departments kept them apart, another carefully considered decision. Quarterly progress reports, James said, placing his folder on the desk, his former arrogance replaced by quiet determination. Client satisfaction surveys, Sarah added, setting down her own documentation, unable to meet her father's eyes. Seth reviewed their work with care. Both showed promise, when not led astray by greed and shortcuts. Your department heads report improvement. Continue on this path. They nodded and departed, understanding that trust, once broken, requires years to rebuild. Their trust funds remained locked behind stringent performance and ethical requirements, a daily reminder of consequences. Later that afternoon, Seth received the final updates from the trial. Gwa and Patty had fought the charges aggressively, preventing any possibility of plea deals. Yet the evidence against them had been overwhelming. Their lengthy prison sentences reflected not only the financial magnitude of their crimes, but also their attempt to frame an innocent competitor. The last appeal was denied, Allison reported via conference call. They are facing the full sentences. The asset seizures have been completed successfully. Transfer all holdings according to the plan we previously discussed. Seth had ensured that the recovered funds would be returned to the defrauded clients, with the remainder establishing an ethics and business scholarship. Success through integrity was not merely a slogan. It was the legacy he intended to build. The family photograph that once dominated his desk had been moved to a drawer, a poignant reminder of lessons learned. In its place stood the company's new mission statement: success through integrity. These were not just words, but a principle proven through fire. His phone buzzed with a message from Dora Mars, the prosecuting attorney whose dedication to justice had matched his own. Their professional collaboration had evolved into something more profound, demonstrating that life often offers unexpected second chances. Dinner tonight. Seth smiled as he typed his response. He had learned that integrity, while sometimes costly, ultimately protects what matters most. His company was now stronger, led by individuals proven trustworthy. His children were learning the value of honest work, and he himself had emerged not bitter but wiser. The graduation party had indeed marked both an end and a beginning, the end of betrayal and the dawn of redemption. Seth had chosen to rebuild rather than simply destroy, creating something stronger from the ashes of betrayal. Looking out over the Boston skyline, Seth reflected on the changes of the past years. He had been right all those years ago, building his company on ethical foundations. When the storm came, those foundations held firm, while those who chose expediency over integrity fell. Success through integrity, he murmured, reading the words that now defined both his company and his life. Some might call it old-fashioned or limiting, but Seth Connor knew better. He had proven that principles, backed by strength and strategy, could overcome any betrayal. And that, perhaps, was the most valuable lesson of all. Epilogue. 5 years later, the Boston Globe's business section. Upon Seth Connor's desk lay the morning edition, its headline boldly printed against the crisp paper. From scandal to success. Connor Insurance Group named most ethical corporation for the 5th year running. At 57, Seth had masterfully transformed his company's most profound crisis into its defining strength. His new office, situated on the uppermost floor of the recently acquired Connor Tower in downtown Boston, offered a sweeping panoramic view of the harbor. The space itself mirrored the company's evolution, modern and transparent, with glass walls that symbolized the openness which had become their hallmark. "Your 9 o'clock appointment is here," Trudy announced through the intercom. 5 years as his chief of staff had not diminished her efficiency, though her salary and influence had grown substantially. "Send them in," Seth replied. The door opened to reveal a profoundly altered Patty Donovan. Gone was the polished socialite who had once conspired to bring about his downfall. Prison had not been kind to her. Her designer attire had been replaced by discount wear, and her once immaculate hair now showed significant gray. She had been released the previous month after serving 4 years of a 6-year sentence, reduced due to her cooperation. "Hello, Seth," she said, her voice stripped of its former confidence. "Thank you for seeing me." "Sit," Seth responded, his tone professionally neutral. The meeting was strictly procedural. Her lawyer had requested it, citing her right to information regarding her frozen assets. "I assume you've read the final disposition." Seth slid a document across the desk. "The courts have upheld the seizure of all assets linked to the fraud. Your appeals are exhausted." "I wasn't appealing for money," Patty murmured, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "I wanted to know about the children." "They are doing well," Seth interjected. "No thanks to your influence." Indeed, James and Sarah had astonished everyone with their commitment to redemption. After serving 18 months of house arrest and community service, their sentences reduced due to their youth and cooperation. They had started at the very bottom of the company, with no privileges or special treatment. James now leads our new ethics compliance division. Seth continued to observe his former wife. Patty's voice faltered as she spoke. "Sarah now leads our client protection unit. They earned those positions through honest work and demonstrated character, and they still refuse to see me." She went on. "They witnessed their uncle Gwa self-destruct in prison after his schemes collapsed. Apparently, it served as a harsh lesson. Gwa's fate had become a cautionary tale in business schools. Unable to accept his downfall, he attempted to orchestrate another fraudulent scheme from behind bars. The additional 20-year sentence drove home the severe consequences of his actions. His recent suicide attempt had made headlines, though Seth suspected it was merely another manipulative ploy. "The insurance industry still discusses it," Seth noted, his tone detached and clinical. "How Gwa tried to blame his cellmate for the new scheme, just as he attempted to frame our competitor. Some individuals never learn." Patty's gaze fell to her lap. The affair that had once seemed so thrilling, so worth the risk, had ultimately cost her everything. Her lover now faced decades in prison. Her children had cut off all contact. Her social circle had vanished, and even her own sister had testified against her to avoid conspiracy charges. "I have another appointment," Seth stated, rising to his feet and signaling the conclusion of their meeting. The terms are clearly outlined in the documents. The trust fund you attempted to drain has been converted into an ethics and business scholarship. Last year, it supported 30 students through college. As security escorted Patty out, Trudy entered carrying the morning reports. Under her leadership, the company had expanded internationally, and legitimately this time. Her wedding ring gleamed in the light. Her marriage to Vince Snell the previous year had united two of Seth's most trusted employees. The Beijing office audit came back clean, she reported. Vince's security protocols are now being adopted across the industry. The FBI is even consulting with him now. Good. And the twins' quarterly reviews. Outstanding. James identified 2 potential fraud attempts last month, and Sarah's client retention rates remain exceptional. Protection programs have reduced claim disputes by 60%. Trudy smiled. They learned their lesson the hard way, but they learned it well. The intercom buzzed. Dad. Sarah's voice carried the professional tone she had earned. The ethics committee meeting starts in 10 minutes. On my way, Seth gathered his materials, including the proposal for their newest initiative, rehabilitation programs for white-collar offenders. The irony was not lost on anyone. In the elevator, Seth's phone buzzed with a message from Dora. Years of marriage had only strengthened their bond. Her work as a federal prosecutor and his commitment to corporate ethics made them a formidable team in the fight against financial fraud. Dinner at 7. The kids want to discuss their community service program. Seth smiled. Dora's teenage children had initially been wary of their mother's relationship with a man whose own family had imploded so publicly, but time and consistency had built trust. Now they were active in the company's youth outreach programs, turning past scandal into future prevention. The ethics committee meeting room was full when Seth arrived. James sat to his right, Sarah to his left, positions earned through proven integrity rather than birthright. Their faces showed the maturity that hard lessons had carved into young features. Today's agenda, James began, his voice carrying the weight of experience, includes our new partnership with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Agent Bird will be joining us virtually to discuss implementation. As Clifford's familiar face appeared on the screen, Seth reflected on the transformation of his family and company. The betrayal that could have destroyed everything had instead forced a radical recommitment to principles. Every employee now knew the story, knew the consequences of choosing expedience over ethics. After the meeting, Seth had lunch with his children, a weekly tradition started during their house arrest that had evolved into a cherished ritual. During a period of valuable family time, Mom attempted to contact me once more. Sarah mentioned that her tone seemed more resigned and bitter this time, conveyed through her counselor. What did you tell them? Seth inquired, though he already understood his daughter's strength of character. The same as always, Sarah responded, her smile tinged with sadness yet unwavering in its firmness. She needs to take responsibility for her choices. No excuses, no justifications. You taught us that, Dad. In a separate conversation, James nodded in agreement. The Ethics Scholarship Program is currently reviewing applications for next semester. Some of the essays reference our family story as a case study in their business classes now. Good, Seth replied. Let them learn from it. Your mother and Gua chose greed over integrity. The consequences were inevitable. Walking back to his office, Seth passed the wall displaying numerous awards, industry recognition of their ethical transformation. The company's stock had tripled since the scandal, demonstrating that principles and profits were not mutually exclusive. Allison Ritter, now serving as their general counsel, fell into step beside him. The last appeal was rejected. His assets in Switzerland have been seized. The Victims' Compensation Fund is fully funded. Make sure this information is publicized, Seth instructed. People need to see that justice doesn't expire. In his office, Seth contemplated the photographs on his desk. New images showing genuine smiles and earned happiness. There was Dora with her children at last year's company picnic, the twins receiving awards for their ethics programs, and Trudy and Vince's wedding where he'd given the bride away. The old family photograph remained in his drawer, serving as a reminder rather than a regret. Its replacement was the company's new motto, expanded from the original success through integrity to principles proven through adversity. His phone buzzed again with a message in the family group chat. The twins were planning a surprise for Dora's birthday. Their acceptance of their stepmother had been gradual but genuine, built on shared values rather than shared blood. As evening approached, Seth prepared to conclude his day. As he prepared to leave for dinner, Seth gazed through his window at the glittering lights of Boston Harbor, the same view he had contemplated when his world had fallen apart. Now, that panorama represented more than mere success. It embodied redemption. The company had weathered betrayal, emerging stronger, more ethical, and more vigilant. His children had absorbed life's most difficult lessons and grown wiser for them. Even the victims of the fraud had been restored, their trust in finances made whole again. Seth himself had uncovered an unexpected truth. Sometimes, the most profound betrayals give rise to the most meaningful transformations. His new family, founded on chosen loyalty rather than assumed trust, stood as proof that second chances are granted to those with the strength to earn them. As for the betrayers, Patty, now living modestly on a prison counselor's salary, and Gua, facing decades behind bars, they had reaped the bitter harvest of their choices. Their cautionary tale had become the foundation for something better, stronger, and more enduring. Success through integrity was no longer just a motto. It was a legacy forged in fire, made stronger by the trials it had endured. On his way out, Seth passed the security desk where it all began. Marcus, still at his post, offered a respectful nod. "Good evening, Mr. Connor. Give my best to the family." "We do, Marcus. Keep watching for the small things. They matter most." The evening air carried a hint of spring as Seth headed home, not to the estate where betrayal had once unfolded, but to the waterfront home he shared with Dora. There, surrounded by chosen family and trust that had been earned, he had rebuilt more than a company. He had forged a legacy worth inheriting. This is where our story concludes. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.